Hi, I'm Kason Hammonds, and I wanted to talk to you today about the Tulsa riot that destroyed Black Wall Street. I chose this topic because it is a topic that is not discussed very often in history classes. Yet it is one of the deadliest riots that occurred in the United States. To begin with, before the riot, Black Wall Street was a place where a community thrived, and it was where a community saw unbelievable destruction. Black Wall Street was located on Greenwood Avenue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In the early 1900s, Greenwood Avenue was part of the Indian Territory under the Dawes Act, until the Indian tribes were forced to move. Then this allowed African Americans to move in. Other African Americans from around the country joined them to escape racial tension and with the hope to prosper in the oil industry. The Greenwood area was where African Americans were able to build a simple community into a community that prospered. Another interesting fact about the Greenwood neighborhood was that it began to thrive. Black businesses began to open up. According to Brown 2018, it was home to luxury shops, 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, a hospital, a savings and loan, a post office, 3 hotels, a jewelry and clothing shop, 2 movie theaters, a library, pool halls, a bus and cab service, a nationally recognized school system, 6 private airplanes, and 2 black newspapers. And this is a picture of Black Wall Street, as they call it, before the race riots. With all these businesses, the Greenwood neighborhood became known as the Black Wall Street. Since racial segregation was still a law, African Americans were not allowed to shop anywhere but in black communities. This kept the money and support in Greenwood Avenue businesses. Due to the success of the businesses, the Greenwood area grew rapidly, and it is estimated that approximately 100,000 people were living there before the Tulsa Race Massacre. Prior to the massacre, Greenwood was considered to be one of the wealthiest communities in the country, and that is how it got its name, the Black Wall Street. The fact that Black Wall Street was a very successful community made it all the more devastating when the Tulsa Massacre happened in 1921. The riot began because a black teenager was accused of assaulting a white woman that was an elevator operator. Dick Rowland was a shoe shiner who went into the building to use the bathroom. Sarah Page accused Rowland of sexual assault, and there was a rumor that a white lynch mob was looking for him. The black community thought it was Rowland who was being wrongly accused, so they gathered outside the jail to protect Rowland. The black community knew how often a black man was wrongly accused of crimes and never had a chance to defend themselves against the accusations. As the black community stood outside the jail, they got into an argument with a group of white men, and shots rang out, leaving many people dead and many people injured. The black people were outnumbered, and the white men had more gunfire than that of the black community. By the end of the attack, close to 300 blacks were murdered and many more were injured. Also, Dick Rowland was cleared of all of his charges. And this is a picture of Black Wall Street after the massacre happened. After the riot, the fact that the Greenwood community was determined to rebuild their community showed their determination to not let the white men control the outcome of the riot. However, segregation became worse and the Klan grew more powerful. The Greenwood community also got a lot of opposition from the white communities when they had time to rebuild. Approximately 80 businesses reopened and were successful until the middle of the century, when all Greenwood businesses began to close because desegregation began to occur. Desegregation allowed black businesses to open in white communities. By the 1960s, most African Americans spent their money outside of the Greenwood community. The last important detail of the Tulsa riots was to keep the history of this event alive. For decades following the riot, there was a cover-up and it was not talked about. The black community tried to get a bill passed in the Senate to have the Tulsa race riots be taught in Oklahoma schools. This bill was not passed, but today there is a Black Wall Street memorial that has the names of all the people who were massacred in the riot. There is also a Greenwood Cultural Center that preserves the information about Black Wall Street. As you can see, the Tulsa race riot was an important part of African American history, and it showed that African Americans were resilient and made huge contributions to society. This part of African Americans' history made me proud. It showed that the black culture was strong and was going to survive all the racism and segregation that the white culture threw at them. Many African Americans consider Black Wall Street to be one of the greatest success stories and also one of the most devastating stories of the time period. And that is my topic of the Black Massacre, or the Black Wall Street Massacre.